Welcome to NFL Daily, where we love 24-year-old rookie quarterbacks. I'm Gregg Rosenthal, and beyond excited today to be joined by my two friends, Mina and for the first time on NFL Daily, Kevin Clark. Welcome to the show, guys.
What's going on?
Why are you laughing right off the bat? I think I might need to change the intro music if both you and Colleen are just like laughing that it sounds like a war march.
I thought I heard like another song. That's why I was like,
me too.
Okay,
me too. I thought somebody was
Great.
playing weird music, like from an unspecified. It felt like oldies, but it didn't feel like it was
That's what I heard
a
too.
specific decade.
Yeah.
We're off to a flying start here. Thank you,
I
Kevin,
don't-
for joining us from your mother-in-law's house. And thank you, Mina. I've been
Appreciate that.
excited about this show for weeks here. We've done this exercise over unders for a couple of years. I'll get into it more in a minute, but I just wanted to have two of the brightest minds over at ESPN to bounce off ideas from.
I want to be clear. I was also smiling because of the visual of Kevin Clark, who has a new haircut, is wearing what appears to be a blazer in his mother-in-law's house, looking a lot like, during COVID when like public science professors would go on CNN for the first time ever. Public science, public health.
I do.
Yeah.
I do know what that looks like.
Epidemiologist. I think I said that wrong.
Okay, a couple things about it. Number one is I'm here because we're doing construction to our house, and it's a little more involved than we thought, and so I had to evacuate kind of quickly. But the most important thing is, like,
evacuate.
I was trying to think of like the most mother-in-law thing that could be within reach. This is her desk. It's a printout, of course, of the Electoral College. I don't know why that's here. Like, they're not like super politically involved by any means. It's just a map of the Electoral College. You just got to know what the path is, I guess.
It's time. It's time to start studying those numbers and figuring out it's that week. And yes, I do appreciate the blazer, you classing this up, and the new haircut. I'm excited to get to the over-unders. We'll get to that in a sec. I did want to just hit off the top. We had some news pop out on Wednesday afternoon that Bo Nix is the official starting quarterback of the Broncos. We don't need to go too crazy because we've been assuming this here on NFL Daily. Mina, on a scale, let's say, of preseason performances that are either misleading or not, starting with, let's say, Kenny Pickett's 2023 is on one end of the continuum, and Russell Wilson's rookie preseason kind of auguring like what was a great career. Where do you see Bo Nix's preseason?
I'm gonna say somewhere in the middle. We talked about this on my show a little bit, the Mina Show featuring Letty, and I was more optimistic than Ben Solak, who was my guest, who, by the way, called Bo Nix a young man. They're like the same age. So when you said he was 24, that really hit me. Anyways, the reason I'm more optimistic about it is because I think Bo Nix in Sean Payton's offense, and I know that sounds like a big, like I'm hedging here, but I don't think it's hedging because we are going to see him in Sean Payton's offense. And I think what's become very clear from the preseason, yes, against backups, and yes, it's very different from the regular season for a litany of reasons in ways that tend to favor efficient quarterbacks who can get the ball quickly. I think Peyton's going to get the most out of him. And so I don't think like the ceiling is incredibly high with this offense, Kevin, but I actually think the floor is maybe higher than I thought going into the season.
He's the most accurate passer in the history of college football, and that means something. And that means something to Sean Payton, and Sean Payton loves him. Jeff Schwartz was on my show, speaking of guests talking about the Broncos, and he said the most encouraging thing about Bo Nix is the offense is tailored towards him. Sean Payton clearly had a plan of what it's supposed to look like. Nix, to me, when you mentioned 24-year-olds, is one of the first of what's going to be the new normal in the draft from now on. Jaden Daniels in this bucket as well, of these elder millennial quarterbacks who
they're not millennials.
Learn to play football. Well, I mean, they learn to play football over 5 years or 6 years in some cases. They use the transfer portal, and they played a ton of football. Bo Nix threw like 1,200 more passes than J.J. McCarthy at the college level. Like, he basically played like, I know the age difference is such, but like the football education difference is so significant. And I talked to Vita Pritchard, who is Jaden Daniels' quarterback's coach, And he was saying, like, we know we can see so much tape in different offenses, and we can see that they're getting this data in their head and they're clocking it, and they're getting better like with every rep. And you don't see that necessarily with Drake May because he was only there for 3 years in one school under one head coach. JJ McCarthy, same situation. Bo Nix has like had a professional career already, and it's here. And so like the fact that the floor is this high is not a surprise. And I think there's going to be a lot of early success. And a couple of these teams are on my big board, so I don't want to get too deep into it.
I know they're over under 5.5 for the Broncos. That's interesting. As down as I am on Sean Payton's long-term success in Denver, 5.5 for a Sean Payton team in year 2 of his program.
I completely agree. But I'm just saying there's going to be this army of guys. There were 6 first-round quarterbacks last year. 3 of them were direct results of the transfer portal, and that's not even counting Caleb Williams. Like, we're going to see like way more Bo Nixes, and those guys are going to have success, especially with Sean Payton.
Yeah, they have a little extra year because of, the COVID year that's finally flushed through. But I want to see how high his floor is. I don't know if I'm skeptical, but I want to see. I'm very excited about that Week 1 Seahawks Broncos game. We talked about like what games are you putting on if you had the 4-game multi-view. That's a late afternoon game, but like I'm very into that just because everything is weird and new in Seahawks Broncos Week 1. All right, we'll see if either of those teams comes up. And yes, Mina Kimes from NFL Live, the Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny, one of the best out there, and Kevin Clark from This Is Football, and all the ESPN programs lately, Around the Horn, and they're sneaking you on NFL Live. It's great. I wanted to have you guys on. This is a show near and dear to my heart because I've done really well at it the last 2 years, and we just need to see if I can keep that going.
Who was your biggest hit the last 2 years? Like, who was the one you just nailed?
Well, I'm 7-0 through the 2 years.
What?
I know. That's what I mean.
That's crazy.
I was surprised and went back and checked. Mina, you went 2-1 2 years ago, so you acquitted yourself well. We did 3 2 years ago. Did 4 last year. It's a little crazy. Under Giants and I can't even remember. Under Giants and Bears. I think over Chiefs when they going into 2022 when they won the Super Bowl and won a million games. That was easy. A lot have been safe. Eagles over. I think in 22
those are pretty
as well.
easy.
It doesn't matter. I don't need to go over that. But I may have thought way too much about this and really struggled to decide who are my last teams because I like it so much. So why don't we start out? It's going to be draft style. Basically, we can each pick the over-unders of any team, an over or an under. But once someone else takes that, you can't take that. So we'll just go. We won't do a snake draft style. We'll start with Kevin because I think, look, he's a newcomer. And
oh, my gosh.
He's playing hurt with that. Sport
with that
on,
random blazer and a map electoral college.
Yeah. Let's start with Kevin, then we'll go to Mina.
I have a question. Can we conceivably, if someone picks X team over, can we draft X team under?
Yes, you can. That would be fun. That is a nice. I would love a challenge match.
I'm probably not going to do that. I don't think that's going to happen, but I just want to make sure that little
that would be fun.
That jujitsu is on the menu. All right, so I'm looking on my big board here. It's deep. It's a deep board. This is a good draft, but I don't know if it's necessarily top heavy. No one. And what's funny is like this is why Vegas makes all the money. Every time I'm like, oh, I really love this team. I'm going to look and Vegas pegged this fairly. Like this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So there's one team I'm real high on that I feel like their total is low. It's a team, Mina, you know well. It's the Los Angeles Rams. And it's 8.5. I think, and I've gone over, like, Steven Ruiz, like, the Aaron Donald thing is going to be so significant, blah, blah, blah. The defense is going to be fine. And the offense is developing into a juggernaut. I really do believe this. I was going through the NFL has a new product, NFL Plus Pro, I think it's called. And I was going through it this morning. I got access to it. And I was looking up like all the open numbers. Who has the most separation under play action? Well, it's Cooper Kupp. Like Sean McVay gets everybody open all the time. Like he's number one in all of those things. And there's a reason for that. Stafford, I'm not worried about his health. I think this is an NFC contender. And I think of that group of that tier A, they're the only one with the total that low.
Yeah, the schedule, I think, for the NFC West not even artificially, but it just depressed all their numbers. And you kind of find
Of
that
course.
going into the year, just which division has tough out of division schedules. And you're like, oh, why is that team so low? Why are all these teams so low? And so I think that's part of it. They weren't on my long list, and maybe they should be, because you're right. If Stafford's healthy, I feel pretty good about that number. For some reason, even though he's already back at practice, just that team's would collapse, I think, without Stafford, even with Jimmy G, and that worries me enough that
it's
they
true
wouldn't
of everybody.
That's fair, but I'm like more worried about Stafford.
Anybody we're picking to go over would collapse if they didn't have
It's
the starting
true of
quarterback.
everybody, but I think the Rams are more dependent on their offense being elite than some other teams because the defense is so young up front and
So young,
lost
but
the best player of all time.
I do think there's a floor with the young guys because I think the Verse and Fisk thing, the thing that we've talked about, Jordan Rodriguez reported that they knew they couldn't replace Aaron Donald, so they did it. I swear to get
I don't
not a
dislike it. I'm
Moneyball
just saying
reference,
I
but-
think that the Stafford thing
like
is what
it.
scares me too. The injuries is really the only thing that scares me with the Rams.
Yes, and so literally they went out and they said we can't replace Aaron Donald, but we can replace him in aggregate. And so they drafted 2 Florida State guys because they thought that the chemistry immediately would help them acclimate very quickly. Then they go out and they draft Cam Kitchens from Miami, who I believe is going to start, right? Like, wasn't that
Has a chance.
that was
Has a
the
chance,
rumor over the week?
I don't know if
He didn't dress in the last
starting.
preseason game, which some of the beats took as a signal that he was at least going to
He's
get a
definitely
lot of
gonna
playing
play.
time.
I'll say that he's definitely gonna play. And I really like the additions. I mean, you mentioned Cam Kitchens. I love the Cam Curl signing at safety.
Mhm.
A lot of Cams back there. I don't dislike this pick at all. I just that's my only concern with the Rams is not just injuries to Stafford, but potentially you're hearing some injuries on the offensive line. Havenstein, Kupp's obviously coming off the injury. It's an offense that when everyone's healthy, I think could be the literally best offense in the entire NFL.
Mhm.
So I am very high on this team too, but that is the concern.
How was Sean McVay in the booth in like your life? What was that experience like for you?
It was brief. It was brief.
Wow.
Yeah. He also his headset wasn't working, so I had to give him my headset. So I actually didn't hear.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was I'm a team player.
All right, Mina, you go with the number
We
2
not me.
overall pick. Here we go.
Okay. This is boring because we talked about it, but I think Broncos 5.5 is probably the best.
Ooh, first
Yeah.
one off the board. Love
Well,
it.
it's a team
I
that
had that.
had 7 Pythagorean wins last year, and I think upgraded at quarterback, frankly. I think this version of whatever you think about Bo Nix and his ceiling, and that is a totally fair to debate. I think the floor that he gives you and that this offense is going to give you with him in it is better than what we saw last year. It was a defense that was a train wreck to begin the season, pulled things together, still finished like 30th in DVOA because of how bad they were at the beginning of the season. Hard to think they're going to be worse. Hopefully you get a full healthy season out of Baron Browning. I just don't see Peyton losing or winning fewer than 6 games 2 years in a row. I just don't see it.
And yeah, that like our producer Eric threw up the over-unders for the entire division if you're watching on YouTube. And yeah, it's one of the worst divisions in the league. It's weird to me that they're a game below the Raiders and 3 below the Chargers. Like that is a huge gap. The case against it would be, Bo Nix, not very talented. Skill position group on paper among the league's worst. I mean, you can make a case for Javonte Williams and some of the secondary receivers stepping up, but it's not that talented. And then defense, where's the strength? What are you excited about? They have a number of pass rushers, but no one that gets you really juiced up. And the secondary after Surtain, I was trying to think of a potential Marshawn Lattimore landing spot just because just on my radar that he left the first practice of training camp with like an injury and no one said anything about it ever since. And this was an issue between the team before. And maybe he is actually hurt and he has a hip injury, which is very concerning for them.
That would be very
or
bad.
maybe there's just been bad vibes there and more going on. And I do wonder if the Broncos could certainly use a Marshawn Lattimore, but there's a million teams that could. All right, I'm going to go third pick. I'm going to go back to, I shouldn't be doing this. Eric put up my picks from a year ago to me, and over on the Bills was one of them. And, they barely snuck that out by streaking at the end. You asked what was my best pick? Going under on the Panthers last year. That was pretty strong. I'm going over on the Bills again. 9.5. Sometimes I think you shouldn't overthink these. Just look at their win total in the last 5 years: 10, 13, 11, 13, and then 11 last year. So that was starting in the Josh Allen first playoff season. Their point differential is always over 125. They've been top 6 in offensive points 4 straight years, top 4 in defense 4 straight years. Like, they are objectively, by any measure, one of the best teams consistently in the NFL. So my main thing is kind of why not? I know the schedule is pretty tough in that division, in and out of division, but if we're doing this all just because Stephon Diggs isn't there, like, yeah, you can come up with some ways they've gotten worse over the last year, but they also have the best offensive line maybe of the Sean McDermott era.
Yep.
They might have the best running game. They've developed their cornerbacks pretty well. Christian Benford is a real player. We'll see, but every preseason they say Kyle Elam looks terrible and is not going to ever win the job, and they're right. And then this preseason they're saying he looks pretty good. That he looks good. Greg Rousseau's popping up, so I get the strength of schedule is why their number is so low. But to me, Sean McDermott's one of the coaches that gives you a schematic advantage, Kevin, in some sort of way, and that's very consistent defense. And so I'm not overthinking. I'm going over Bills again. This is probably the last time or the first time they've been this low in the McDermott era.
I completely agree with you. And I believe McDermott has exceeded his win total in every single season. I believe that. I saw that stat the other day, which would track, frankly. I talked to Joe Brady, their new OC, or their vaguely new OC. This is his first training camp as OC in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. And I said, what are you doing? Like, what's keeping you up at night? And he was like, we want to be able to win every single way. Like, we want to be able to have like the James Cook way against Dallas. We want to be able to have Josh. They're not trying to change Josh Allen, but they're just trying to say, like, all right, we need to be so flexible that we can win any sort of game. And I really do think that's possible. And I also think it's just because of the singular talent of Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen, we did this exercise on my show last week. Like, I think there are 6 quarterbacks who are actually worth the money, who deliver value more than what they take away with the $40 million a year that you're paying them. I think there's about 6. I think there's, and I don't like, you can go through it and you can argue about some of those guys, but I think there's 6 where the team is like, we would actually pay. Like, we probably shouldn't say this publicly, Mina, but we've talked about our nannies before. And we've said that if our nannies stuck us up.
This is good. This is relatable. Like, people really like hearing this stuff.
And we're like, our child care professionals were like, we want more money. We would be like, there's nothing I can do. You are so good at your job. I'm going to give you more money. The thought of not having you in the house is such a nightmare that I can't conceive of it. Here's
there are other nannies. And what if that nanny is an NFL Daily listener? I'm almost insulted that you just assume I haven't made that sort of breakthrough.
I'm just saying that's a franchise quarterback. We will pay any amount of money. Josh Allen is one of the 5 or 6 guys where if anytime they want to renegotiate, they're going to be like, yeah, that sounds good, brother.
Just thinking about my nanny coming home today after her drive and saying she wants a raise. And also, by the way, are you sure about that?
She wants more guaranteed money up front.
Okay.
She wants to restructure.
I'm very high on the Bills. I had them in both my top 10 offenses and defenses. The Matt Milano injury dimmed my optimism a little bit. I am worried about the linebacker position with this team just because the spine with those linebackers and safeties is so young. However, I think Josh Allen papers over so much. 9.5. For some reason, I thought it was 10 and 9.5. I would take the over too. So I'm with you.
Yeah, one under the Jets there. And yeah, that's where I'm counting on McDermott's schematic advantage with just like he can get those linebackers to play at a good enough level. Maybe it might be Dorian Williams from Tulane. And the whole thing about the skill position guys, they have enough plus skill position players to me. Shakir, Knox, Kincaid, Cook, like all those guys are plus players. Maybe Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel get to be that way. Ray Davis, little funky. All right, let's go with your second pick, Kevin.
I swear to God, a fax machine just went off in this room.
That is exciting. You've traveled back in time.
Is it a printed out poll? Is it unskewed polls?
I mean, it might be. I don't even know. It just nothing seems to even be in there. Just wanted to make noise to let us know that it was here. So there's a fax machine in here. We're going to play some other stuff as well. This is tremendous. Okay, so this was actually lower on my big board, and then I'm looking at my big board, And I'm like, man, this is calling out to me, and I'm going to regret not calling this ahead of time. By Sharp Analytics strength of schedule, they have a harder than normal schedule. They have one of the grimmest, most outwardly hostile quarterback situations in the league. They have a bunch of unhappy people and a vaguely new coach. The Las Vegas Raiders are going to lose a lot more games than the 6.5 that is currently given to them by. And the defense is going to be fine. The defense, I guess, is going to be more aggressive, and obviously they've got a floor of talent there. Christian Wilkins is very good. Max Crosby is very good. This is going to be a very bad team, guys. This is going to be a very bad team. Gardner Minshew was named starting quarterback, and everybody around the team was like, "Yeah, he wasn't very good." I was like, "What happened?" And Antonio Pierce, the entire camp was like, "We're waiting for somebody to grab that job," and just nobody did it. And he was named 2 weeks before the season as starter by default. When that happens, I have to go under.
You check that facts because it might be from an old NFL fan telling you Minshew has the it factor, which is something I've been told a lot in recent days. I stayed away from this one because I'm scared of the defense. But I agree with everything you said. I like this. You called it a hostile quarterback competition. It is hostile to my eyes. I would describe it as depressing. And it's depressing because I actually really I like kind of everything else going on with this team, Greg, and that's what bums me out.
I did the thing where I did your AFC West preview, and I finished it, and I was like, oh, I was that guy that just was way too optimistic about everyone just because it was fun to be. It was August. I went to Raiders camp, and I got convinced that their defense is going to be truly special. Then again, they were, going against Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew in practice. And you're right. Antonio Pierce said after the game, it would have been nice if someone played well in this game. And then the next day, he names Minshew.
He didn't win because of last night, is how he put it.
Right. But they do have potentially, they have continuity on the offensive line. They have potentially an average, maybe even above average, depending on how you squint at it, offensive line and pretty decent skill players. So, and a good defense. So that maybe 6.5. That feels about right in the AFC West.
Does Devontae Adams want to be there?
Right. That could be. Things could go off the tracks, and they could trade, him at some point. But it would be surprising. Doesn't feel like he really wants to be there. All right, you go with your second pick,
buddy. Okay, I'm staying in the division. Similar lines, Greg. You will not be surprised by this one.
Oh, no.
Chargers are not winning more than 8.5 games.
I knew you were taking Chargers under.
I'm sorry. That is not a good football team. It is a great quarterback. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh is a good coach. I'm excited about the Jesse Minter hire. I don't care. I have looked at that depth chart, stared at it, tried to figure out how you get to 9 wins. I don't see it. Skill player group is a real problem. And I do the preseason. They just play the Chargers. So, usually it's backups. So you got to hedge. Mm-hmm. Their starters were on there, guys. And I'm telling you, outside of Herbert, obviously, it's not a good situation.
They need the defense to be good, to have a chance to be excellent. Mina and I have a friendly disagreement. If the Chargers finish in the top 20 in DVOA, I win that on defense. I am a little worried that Joey Bosa's missing all of training camp, and he might play week 1, and absolutely no one has talked about that. He's got a wrist injury. Derwin James has been out lately. There's a lot of projection. I usually overrate the Chargers. This is one of those where the offseason's so long that now when I looked, it was very hard when I'm making this long list because
oh my God, you're already backing off of it. I feel it.
I know, the offseason's so long that you make the case and then you make the case again. By this point in the season, I can see both sides. I'm not backing off the defense. I feel good about that. They could be a top 20 DVO defense, but I am with you. Under 8.5 feels pretty good. The only thing that makes me feel a little better, other than it's just Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert is back on the field.
Yeah,
is everyone suddenly thinks it feels like the Chargers are one of the worst teams in the NFL, but that number is crazy high. I mean, it's a little weird
really
that
not
so
everyone that it's 8.5.
That's fair.
9 wins.
The one thing, I have 2 things on that. Number one, I think the Chargers are going to be better than you think. They have the second easiest schedule in the NFL, according to the Vegas.
That must be part of it. That's part of
expectation things. That's part of it. The second part is that Jim Harbaugh took a really mediocre roster to the NFC title game the last time he took over an NFL team. And we look back now and we go, oh, those guys are studs. If you look at the roster now, he made them studs. Nobody was saying that was a sleeping giant at all in San Francisco. I know. I was there. I watched that team, and they got a lot better year over year. There's going to be a credibility there. Normally that's fake, but like a lot of times, like coaches don't even know how to practice. Like Jim Harbaugh knows how to hit and toughness and like evaluate. Like there's just going to be a lot there. You mentioned the Joey Bosa thing, how nobody talks about it. I've been thinking about this recently. There's so many situations that are just hidden in plain sight. And I don't know what the difference is between like Trent Williams holdout, which no one is talking about, and the Brandon Ayuk thing, where we're just getting like every 30 seconds there's a different meeting that we're hearing about. And it's like, I just don't know how it got so lopsided that there's just some situations we cannot shut the hell up about, and other situations like Joey Bosa that literally nobody talks about.
Fantasy? I don't know. That's my guess.
Is it?
And there's one where the principals, being the front office of the San Francisco 49ers, think they can skew the situation by talking to the media
by
about
having
it.
meetings?
In the other one, they're like, oh yeah, we know Trent Williams just wants to skip all of training camp, and we're going to give him a raise, and he'll be there next week. I'm putting the over-under on Trent Williams. I don't know when their preseason game is, but 36 hours after their last preseason game is when I bet.
That was the old Walter Jones move. Walter Jones show up on September 1 and be like, time to make the all-pro team.
He's 36 years old. They don't need to see more out of Trent Williams.
What do you think he's doing?
What? What am I doing?
What's Trent Williams doing? How's he spending his time?
He would hope, you would think, staying in shape. I mean, he is like the most fearsome athlete maybe in the entire NFL. But yeah, it's a good question. All right, I'm going to go.
I'm looking up to see if he has an Instagram. I'll report back.
All right, I'm going to go with my second pick, and then we'll take a little bit of a break. This is where I'm already starting to wonder, what do I want to do? I want too many things. I'm going back to the well again. I didn't realize I was doing this. I've actually gone under on Bears 2 straight years. I think it was 6.5.
Ooh,
2 years ago, it was 7.5.
Wait, where are they?
Last year,
what are they now?
And when I saw 9.5, if it was 8.5, they're 9.5 at DraftKings. That's the link I sent you.
Wow.
So just so that we were going off the same one, I do think you get a little like extra odds or whatever. I work for the NFL. None of these are real things, but it is the team I think I'm furthest from consensus. One of them. Under 9.5, I feel great about. There's a lot of reasons. Number one, the second half defensive improvement last year, how reliant it was on turnovers. Yes, like on paper, it's a great back seven, but I still count the year and a half that Matt Eberflus coached before that as something that matters. So I think they need to have a great defense, and I'm just not sure they were average last year overall. If I'm looking for teams that are going to underachieve, I want to see like who has a bad combined line play, or offensive line, defensive line. Like to me, they're below average on balance, offensive line and defensive line. Our guy Aaron Schatz over at FDN, I always feel a little better if he's on the same page. He projects them for 6.5 wins. And then I think that's partly because of the schedule. So improved AFC South out of division, NFC West out of division. They do get soft, teams with the last place schedule. They get Carolina, Washington, New England. So that's big. And then the last thing, and this is just an intangible. What have you guys thought about Matt Eberflus on Hard Knocks, like in his one-on-one meetings with Caleb Williams? We'll start with Kevin on this one, but that is contributing to my decision.
I sent a clip to Mina, and I don't want to. She can. I'm not going to put words in her mouth.
You can quote it.
So there was a clip that went around earlier today. I'll just read the text. There was a clip that went around earlier today of Caleb, arms folded, not taking notes in the one-on-one head coach meeting. Now, these head coach meetings, especially with defensive head coaches, are sort of embedded in football lore. Like Belichick and Brady famously had them every Monday, and I don't think like Charlie Weiss and then Josh McDaniel and then Bill O'Brien were even invited. It was just those two guys, and that's part of why Brady was able to understand coverages so well, is that he had the best defensive mind in history, being like, here's what you need to look for. So these are valuable. There's a clip where Caleb Williams is in this meeting, and I don't know what they're doing, but he's got his arms crossed. He's not taking notes. A couple people made reference to this. I, as the body language doctor, kind of agreed with some of the folks who pointed that out. So I sent this to Mina, and her response is, God, Eberflus looks incredible, though.
It's true though. She's not wrong. He's looked great. So
Am I wrong?
that's worth like
Kevin.
half a win.
Yeah.
That's worth half a win.
Kevin, did you spot a lie in my response? That's all I want to know.
I didn't spot a lie. You didn't address the arms folded allegations, though.
I'm just getting like a little bit of a Joe Shane vibe where it's like, I want more out of these meetings. And just like, hey, what do you think? And they're just, I don't know. There's something there. Yeah. And he is in the third year of his contract, Mina, where look, if they go 9-8, I win this one. And so that's the thing. Like, I think 8 and 9 with a tougher schedule, or 9 and 8 is a totally normal, good outcome for this team. And that's partly why I picked
I think that's totally fair. I will say about Eberflus, to give some more substantive commentary.
Yeah. You don't have
something
to.
That's kind of gets lost. We did the NFC North this week on my pod, and something, it comes out tomorrow, that gets a little bit lost in when we talk about him is him taking over the defense in the second half of the year after all the weirdness there, and how amazing they played. And there are numbers that are a little. This is probably why there's like there was a lot of turnovers, right, which can tend to be a predictor for regression. But I think that back seven is really good. I think it's a really talented young secondary, a really great linebacker duo. I think pass rush is a question mark, but it's an aggressive team. I think they're going to trade for a pass rusher at some point. So I think I actually agree with you, Greg. I think that's a little bit high of a line, but I am optimistic about this team generally, and I think they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot.
I'd like to report, I think the Bears are going to be fine. Trent Williams has not posted on Instagram since Super Bowl, and his last tweet is a retweet from 2 years ago in which Chad Ochocinco ranks him as one of the 5 most fashionable guys, Trent Williams, behind Steve Harvey.
How do I get like that?
Yeah, I love a life without any social media. I'm jealous. I'm already regretting this Bears pick. It's not fun. I totally believe in Caleb. I could have picked more fun ones. Maybe
the Bears have the third easiest schedule.
Yes.
According to Sharp Analytics.
Wait,
they have a quarterback.
I don't get that though. Yeah, it all depends on.
I mean, the NFC
different
North?
systems.
What? Yeah, different systems.
NFC West, NFC North. They do have those 3 games, the like kind of the layups I mentioned. They had Carolina, Washington, New England on their schedule, which that'll help. All right, we're gonna take a break, and then we will pick our last 2 teams each right after. We are back on NFL Daily. I've got a big board like Kevin with about 13 more picks. I'm still not totally decided which ones I'm going to take. But I don't have to worry about that right now because Kevin Clark from This Is Football has come up with 2 electric takes so far. And we're going to hear what his next one is.
I wish I could trade back because I have so many teams I want to slander, and I can't.
That's the thing with this draft. Every single pick is literally 50-50, just about. So, yeah.
All right. There's a couple of can of worms I don't really want to open right now. I'm going to kind of do what you did, which is just go back to the well on a really bad team. It's the New York Giants, under 6.5. I only saw clips from Hard Knocks. Was not impressed with their operation there. Okay, I do think like Malik Neighbors.
Hard Knocks-based analysis. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah,
I do think Malik Neighbors, Joe Shank, pretty good looking guy. Malik Neighbors is going to be really good, but I don't think Daniel Jones is very good. I still think that they have talent holes in a lot of different places, and I just don't think. I think that they're a very boom and bust team. They have some high level blue chip guys. But boy, I don't see a lot going on here, fellas. I don't see a lot.
6.5 feels fair to me. Mina, both the Giants and Commanders are 6.5. Cowboys are at 9.5. Eagles at 10.5. There are cases for the Giants. I think the defense could absolutely improve. I think the offensive line could be the best offensive line Daniel Jones has played behind. Not good, but like it's always been bottom 3 or 4 in the NFL. I think it actually will be better this year. So I think 6.5 feels fair. I feel like they're 6 to 7 wins.
Let me counterpoint that. I think Daniel Jones is very bad. I think I've called him the Holy Trinity, which is expensive, injury prone, and bad. The big three, as I call them.
Very, very bad.
And Chris Canty was on my show yesterday, former Giant, played with a lot of great quarterbacks. And I said, we're talking about the Daniel Jones, getting a check down intercepted, and what's that like? And he said, well, he played with Romo and Eli and Flacco and guys who won a lot of things. And he was like, but there was 1 year Romo was hurt, and we played with Brad Johnson. And then we played with Brooks Bollinger because Brad Johnson was so bad. And he was like, you see quarterback play, and you just kind of check out from it because it's so bad. And I think sometimes, I'm not saying it's going to happen week 1 with Daniel Jones, but he was like, literally there becomes a point where the quarterback play gets so bad. This is Chris Canty talking. Where you just say, I'm just going to get out of here happy and healthy. I'm good. I'm all set. Let's just live to fight another day. And I'm a little bit worried that Daniel Jones, the things, and I thought there was a really great QB school breakdown of Daniel Jones interceptions the other day that I watched. And some of it is just the vanilla scheme, and he didn't have anywhere to throw. Some of it was guys running the wrong route. But he just seemed to not control the football. And I think that's just going to, it's not going to get any better. That particular skill is not going to get any better. He's not athletic enough to overcome that in any meaningful way. He's able to do it for a game, but not for 17. Brian Daboll seems a little pre-fired to me. A little pre-fired, slightly pre-fired.
How long was this QB school breakdown of the Daniel Jones?
It was 40 minutes. It was 40 minutes. I was locked in.
I don't know nearly as much as JT O'Sullivan does, and I can't look at a play and tell you exactly, the right reads in the way that he can. But I watched that first interception, and I could break it down for you just by going do 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 wah wah. That's what it looked like to me. Yeah, I don't think Daniel Jones plays all 17 games for them, not because of injuries. I think that at some point
I know what you're getting at.
Drew Lock, baby. Which, by the way,
John Schneider tried to drop that little bomb in the offseason.
And I love that. I wish GMs did that more. I love it.
I love it too. I will, I'm not going to say I'm a Daniel Jones defender, but I did watch the entire first half, and he threw more high-level throws in that game than I've seen Daniel Jones throw in any game in a while. So I at least was like, okay, at least he's trying.
I saw some of those on the QB school. Those are broken down.
This is why
I saw every throw he made.
Having friends in this industry over the course of many years, because you have always been a Daniel Jones defender. You're so full of right now. Years defended
I've always
him.
Said he's about if he was
lightly.
protected, he would just be close to league average. That's all I've said. So I thought he was vastly overrated after 2022. But it's always been such a bad situation. I was like, he could deliver if you protected it. But that's a lot of crapping on Daniel Jones. That's too bad. Mina, what give me your next one, Mina.
By the way, I don't disagree with what you just said about him. I just don't think that situation is gonna. It's not like he's dropping in. I don't think the offensive line is gonna be that much better. All right, I've had 2 picks already, so I'll spend my third on the homer pick. I'm going over Seahawks 7.5.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a pretty obvious one, honestly. This is an offense that I think finished either 12th or 13th in DVOA off the top of my head. I think that we're going to see some improvement this year, hopefully with better offensive line play. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. The right tackle situation is dicey, but everything else I think will be good, and I'm really excited to see what Ryan Grubb brings to the table. Pardon me, I'm still high on Geno. The flip side, though, is why I'm making this bet. The Seahawks defense was god-awful last year, and I think that they played below their talent level. And I think the addition of Mike McDonald on that side of the ball, even if he can get them just to average, which I think is totally plausible with the talent that they have on that roster, that gets you over 7.5 wins pretty easily.
I completely agree. First of all, Grubb was really good last year at spreading the ball around in Washington. He's got those sort of targets in Seattle. Geno, I think we're all Geno defenders here. He's going to be able to spread the ball around. Mike McDonald is really freaking smart. And And I think we're going to see, like, I think Pete Carroll probably got a bit of a raw deal, but I think sometimes you just need a little bit of a shot in the arm, and Mike McDonald's going to provide that.
Yeah, this number surprised me as much as any. If I was more strategic, I would have taken this before Mina could have, because I definitely love it, and it would have been one of mine. It's weird that they've won 9 games the last 2 years. I know the schedule is a big part of it. They all have tough schedules in the NFC West, in and out of division, and I know that's a big part of it. But Grub McDonald 2024, like that to me is the campaign I'm behind. I think, and they're kind of, if you picked, I know I was saying like offensive line, defensive line, that maybe would be the question of like, are they better than average at either? Definitely not on offensive line, but they're elite wide receiver cornerback combination. Like, and those are positions that are highly paid, highly important. Like that is as good as a wide receiver plus cornerback group as there maybe is in the league. I'm gonna go next because it's connected. And I decided, this is, it's for information, but it's also an entertainment show. And why not go big and get a little spicier, have some fun, and go under 49ers 11 and a half.
I thought about that.
To combine with it. Because I've just been,
I thought about that.
This is not a talent argument, because that argument doesn't quite work. So that's dangerous. It's a schedule and human nature argument. Great division. We mentioned the schedule. They play the AFC East out of division. Pretty tough. NFC North out of division. Their extra games, the 3 extra games, are at Green Bay, at Tampa Bay, and Chiefs. So if you were trying to come up with what's just about the toughest schedule possible, that's close to that. Okay, so that's number one. Then they're in this situation where they have all the trappings of a team that's won repeatedly without the actual fun of having done it, like the weight of it all. Like I could absolutely see them winning 10 or 11 games, and this being the year they win the Super Bowl anyways, but I still win this over under because it's a tough regular season, and maybe they don't win this division, and maybe they have to get in as a wild card. There's other reasons to it, but those are the main ones.
The biggest pitfall to me for the over is them thinking October doesn't matter, like January matters. So like if they need to experiment for 2 weeks, like they're gonna, hey, we're gonna figure it out, or hey, we're gonna hold a guy out for a couple weeks because all that matters is January. If Brock Purdy's banged up, do we sit him in December? Like that's the biggest obstacle to me. Like they've got the talent, they've got the coaching, we know what's gonna happen. To me, it's do they care about the regular season, or do they only care about January?
That's, by the way, what's kept me away from the Chiefs. Same thinking. But another thing I think, Greg,
they don't care. They just like,
yeah, no, I know. That's why I'm like,
Patrick Mahomes is just like, well, that was Mitchell Schwartz on my show. He was like, they'll just spend a year being like, hey, let's just develop this one like part of our game, and we'll lose 2 games, and we'll see you in January and win the Super Bowl.
We're gonna do all shovel passes for 1 game just to see. Another point, I think
we're gonna see if Kadarius Toney can play in the NFL.
I can't.
It's like a Mr. Beast video. We took Kadarius Toney and put him in the NFL.
The Niners were the 4th healthiest team in football last year, and that to me seems unlikely. It already. I mean, you don't have Dre Greenlaw. There's McCaffrey. I know they're saying he's fine, but he's been out. It's just the little bit of history there.
Debo history, Bosa history.
Debo, yeah.
The D line is thinner. If I wanted to get a little more just tangible, like they're really counting on this Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd.
Stop the run.
It's just not quite what it was, and now I'm saying all that thinking like, they're still the odds-on favorite to win the division.
Yeah.
And they're still amazing, but just 11 and a half. It's the human nature thing. It's the regular season thing. All right, we've reached our last round here, Kevin. This is exciting. We have not flown through this, so you will not have to prepare 5 picks. This will be your final selection, Kevin.
There's 3 teams I'm staring at. 1 over, 2 unders.
You can just say them, because what does it matter? Let's hear.
No, don't. You want to take 5.
No.
I'm just curious.
No. We can do honorable mentions at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do honorable mentions at the end. I'm gonna. This is crazy. This is such a homer pick because they have, just to please you, Greg, because they have one of the hardest schedules in football. The New England Patriots are going to win more than 4.5 games.
They're on mine too. My list too. 4.5.
Drake May.
Stupid.
So first of all, like Drake May look bad in practice for 2 reasons. First of all, it's a different sport going from college to pro because the hash marks are different and teams don't disguise anything at the college level, and you've never seen a complicated blitz in your life, okay? So he looks bad because he's going against the Patriots defense, which learned ball from Bill Belichick, and who currently works under Jerome Mayo, who also learned it from Bill Belichick. They're a talented defense that can make any young quarterback's life hell, especially a guy who only played essentially 2 seasons at UNC in the ACC. And the fact that he looked rough for the first couple of weeks should be expected, and the fact that everybody was so doom and gloom was surprising to me. Then you have the floor of the offense, top 10 in yards allowed. There's still a lot of talent there. There's still a Belichick. It's just Brian who's there. Jerome Mayo's a defensive coach. They're gonna be fine, and that's all you need for over 4.5 wins.
Yeah, the schedule, it's crazy. I mean, I know it'll end up getting easier, but when you look at their first like 7 or 8 games, it's wild to see a team that's projected to have 5 fewer wins than anyone else in their division. And I heard you on the defense, but they did fatten up last year, like on the easy QBs a little bit. And it is a little worrisome that their 2 most talented players in the front 7 are either not there or, in Christian Barmore's case, out indefinitely with this blood clot issue. So that they are in a little bit, but I'm with you. I wrote them down. I just wasn't going to pick them because it just feels like bad juju.
There's too many good players on this defense still. The Barmore injury loss really hurts me. Makes me nervous about them being top 8 or whatever I had them projected. But I think Keon White's going to have a monster season. Uche contract year, I still feel good about. You got Anthony Jennings. Just like a lot of players who are good too. I mean, the linebackers are good. Corners are good. You got Gonzalez back. Field Yates, who's very plugged into the Patriots, is a huge fan of DeMarcus Covington, who they promoted to be the defensive coordinator. So I just think this defense is too good to lose 4 games. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and the offensive talent is actually better than it's been. One of the Eagles reporters, Bo Wolf, put it this way when he was watching. This was more a comment on the Eagles, but he was like, if you were ranking the wide receivers at their joint practices, it's like, obviously it's AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, 1 and 2. But then the next 7 people were Patriots. They actually do have like 6 number 3 receivers. None of them are very good in terms of like elite players, but I think it's better with Ramondre than it's been.
It's funny that the Packers have 6 number 2s and the Patriots have 6 number 3s.
Right.
It's just
not really how you want a team build, but I like that. Thank you for kissing up. That was on my longer list as well. All right, Mina, your last pick.
All right. I'm staring at the sun. This one. I'm touching the third rail. The monkey's paw is about to curl. I'm taking Steelers under 8.5. I know Mike Tomlin doesn't lose.
Makes so much sense.
Man, this team. So last year, they won 10 games. They had 7.9 Pythagorean wins, which was 21st. They had they ranked 21st also in points margin. They were very healthy last year. I know TJ Watt missed some games, but they were 7th in adjusted games lost. I'm not overweighting the preseason here, but I feel like a bet on this team is that the defense continues to play at an elite level, which they've got like a lot of aging players, and that the offense is an improvement on last year. And boy, I don't know about that offense, guys. It's what you call the Raiders quarterback competition hostile. This one is hostile. Like hostile 4, hostile 5, hostile 6.
Hostile towards the sport. Hostile. Saw. It was the Saw franchise. I had that on my longer list. I completely agree. My only concern, I actually thought about this recently. Like, you know how the reason jetliners usually don't crash, is because there's 500 things that have to go wrong, they say. And if one thing goes right, the airplane stays in the air. Like, that's kind of how the Steelers are built. Like, the plane is always in the air because they always have a good line. They always have a good front 7. There's not a lot of distractions. The defense, the coaching is always sound. Mike Tomlin's really good at motivating his guys and just telling them directly what they need to hear. And I kind of think, I think a lot about the line from Seth Wickersham's book, where Jimmy Johnson told Belichick that I think the phrase was 24 teams will just get out of your way. The Steelers are always in the 8, always. And that's why I just think they win more games than they lose every single year, including this year.
The only thing, Mike Tomlin's not good at, though, is hiring offensive coordinators. It used to be, and
Arthur
I don't
Smith
know,
is
maybe
good.
Arthur Smith works, and I have some optimism that it's an upgrade from Matt Canada, but he hasn't really been able to figure out how to construct an offense, and it's been a minute. All right, man, I think I'm just gonna go for the one that's more fun because I have two unders that I feel pretty strongly about. I'll just say them: Browns and Saints.
Yeah,
And
Browns was one of mine.
maybe let's talk Browns after this. We'll just add it, but I'm not going to do that. I want to finish feeling
Oh,
positive in one that I do fully believe in too, which is the kind of the most basic one on the board. Maybe Texans over 9.5 to me.
I had that.
Just just like they're so freaking talented.
good.
Anyone,
Dude.
it's just crazy. Anyone that's gone through their training camp is always like when they leave their training camp, they're just like, oh my god, their players are just so freaking good, Mina.
The flip side of the Daniel Jones meltdown was holy Texas defense is going to be sick this year. Derek Stingley looks like he's ready to have like a top 3 cornerback type season. Daniil Hunter, absolute monster opposite Will Anderson. I'm so geeked on that defense right now. And oh, by the way, they have the rookie quarterback who broke records and also looks unbelievable. I mean, I feel like you can't be high enough on the 2024 Houston Texans right now.
So he had the best deep passer rating in history. And where he struggled, oddly enough, was short and intermediate. So you go out and you get I believe, the 3rd best intermediate receiver in football last year in Stephon Diggs. Pair that with the normal growth, pair that with year 2 with this offensive coordinator. They're going to be awesome this year. Like, truly awesome.
They remind me so much of the Lions a year ago where they were kind of that team.
Yeah.
And then everyone by the end doesn't want to seem too basic by the time the season starts. And like I don't know if there was Lions pushback by the start of that year. And it's like, no, they actually did show who they were at the end of the previous season. They really are that talented. The coaching staff is great. The division's interesting. We showed the over-unders and like Colts 8.5. I'm not opposed to that either. And the Jaguars to me are just a tough team to talk about, to figure out. I'm actually going to be talking with John Shipley of Jaguars on SI.com on our next show, because the Jaguars are a team that fascinates me. But man, CJ Stroud, you're always betting on the quarterback. Drew Dinsick of NBC, who I think is really good with this stuff. He has this podcast, Bet the Edge, and he sees like Ravens 2019 in this Texans team, kind of like second-year quarterback that might compete for the MVP, and that they have like a 13-14 win upside. And I don't think that's crazy. So with these overs or unders, I want ones that like I think they have a chance to beat by 3 or 4. I feel like the Texans do have a chance to beat it by 2.5 or 3. So that's my last one. And yeah, to mention Browns just to get it in there, but it's not going to count. Not going to count towards their draft. It's the vibes. It's the defensive decline. Jim Schwartz. Here's the more tangible reason. Jim Schwartz. I've been watching this now for 20 years. He just pops up every like 5 years with an absolutely electric defense. Go look to see what happens the next year. Like the other 15, 16 years he's had as a defensive coordinator have mostly been fine. He did get 2 in a row at one point in Tennessee, and that's what got him the Detroit job. But other than that, he has like 4 or 5 epic defensive seasons, and the rest are just kind of in the middle. And so that's just like the decline. And then also just injuries, like Watson's out of practice today with arm soreness.
Watson, yeah, I was going to say general arm soreness.
Right. I'm just staying. I've talked so much about Watson. I almost leaving that out of it because Jameis might not be even a downgrade, but Dalvin Tomlinson, Denzel Ward, Jack Conklin, Jedrick Willis, Greg Newsome. Like it's all these guys going into the season. Hurt. So that's a lot. Yeah.
It's literally 52 people are hurt and they're on the side. And then the only people on the field are Mike Vrabel and Jameis Winston running sprints over and over and over again. That's the 2024 Cleveland Browns.
I love that.
Sorry, they're 11 and oh no, I must have clicked. What they're I'm sorry.
They're 8.5, so it would be under 8.5. 8.5's fair enough. It's just more. That's one where I could see the wheels falling off a little bit. Maybe I'm overrating, and I'm obviously like not a Watson fan, but them and the Saints stuck out to me as like teams that if they get off to a creaky start, that it could just.
I'm not touching the NFC South with a 10-foot pole. I hear you
in this exercise. Yeah, I thought about over Bucks was on my list, but I didn't go there.
Just that division.
May I ask why? I was surprised there's a team that didn't come up either way, and it's the Vikings, 6.5.
I had over
I can see
Vikings.
them being a total disaster, Okay, I thought about under Vikings.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Was bad.
We could've
No,
taken
that
both
was
sides
on.
of this.
If we
I
had like
over.
8 picks, they would have been over. Vikings would have been one of my 8 or 9 picks. They were on my medium list. Why under, Kevin?
That's cool. Well, because Sam Darnold's been in the league for a long time.
Okay,
And
okay.
I pulled the stat up here. Since 2019, 39 quarterbacks have had 1,000 dropbacks. Among that group, Darnold ranks 37th in EPA per play and 36th in success rate.
Yeah,
Mm.
those first couple years, I remember bringing it up on
Yeah.
the Around the NFL podcast with
Sure.
the historical comps that Sam Darnold had were always like the worst quarterbacks in NFL history. I think he can be fine.
And then what?
the
And then
rest
what
of the
happened
team
in
is
the
good.
ensuing years?
Yes. But Mina's with me on over Vikings. All right, let's
No,
recap.
I know.
Before I say goodbye, Kevin was wrong about the Vikings, but it's not going to count. We are going to keep track of this. Kevin went over Rams 8.5, under Raiders 6.5, under Giants 6.5, and over Pats 4.5. So he did not, really pick the best teams in the league. He kind of trolled at the bottom, and we'll see. Mina goes over
What?
Broncos 5.5, under Chargers 8.5. I like that. Over Seahawks 7.5. Under Steelers 8.5. Those all make a lot of sense to me, I have to
Last
say.
one. Ooh, chill just went down my spine.
And then I went for a lot of the more premium teams here. I went over Bills 9.5, under Bears 9.5, under 49ers 11.5, and over Texans 9.5 to make my son happy. I wanted him to fill this out as an exercise. I thought maybe it could be part of the show. Even I gave him the list. And he just went overs with like the 4 teams that made the championship game last year. And I just realized like, you're not ready for this. You're Jordan Love in your rookie season. That's not good content. You're just picking overs on the 4 best teams.
Who was on television talking about football. I think your son is ready for this because the analysis he just provided, I think would work in certain programming.
You sound like Brian Flores and your son is Tua. You're just really giving him tough love.
No, I didn't. I didn't tell that to him, but I was just like, okay, I don't know if this is good content. You just all the teams that made the Final Four being over. That doesn't get me going. But he's a big Texans fan, so he'll like that pick.
Mina, what if I rebranded next year and was just one of those people who just tweeted how good a team's going to be every single day? Would that be a good career move?
What kind of format are we talking about? What kind of tweet format?
Just like I make a video and I'm just like here come
everybody's
the Raiders.
Sleeping on.
Problem.
Craig knows
everybody's sleeping on the Raiders. Everybody's sleeping on the Raiders.
Right. I did not do an entire off season of NFL Daily, but next year that is my plan to go through every team and at one point give their fan base just a little something to chew on that they're underrated. Because who's gonna really listen to all of them?
I feel terrible for saying this. There's a guy who does that in college, and I get really annoyed with him. And then one day he just sent me a random DM. He's like, every team is like going to be a problem this year. He just randomly sent me a DM. Never met him in my life. And he just said, "Thank you for all you do for the sport of football." What? And I was like, what a DM. I love this guy.
And you felt just like all those fan bases. He was calling you underrated. Everybody's sleeping on Kevin Clark.
You guys do a lot. You do a lot for the sport. You're making us all smarter, Kevin, at ESPN.
Can I quickly tell a Daniel Jones story that I wasn't able to tell earlier? Does anybody have to go?
You can. No. There's no time limit.
Okay.
Although
all right.
none of us are air.
If this story sucks, if this story sucks, you can cut it. So I went to a Zach Bryan concert with Jeff Darlington at the Super Bowl, and it was presented by a beer company, and I had a lot of the beer company. A lot of it was served, and I had a lot. And I was actually ironically going to afterwards meet up with the NFL Live crew at a different event. So I have so much, and I am leaving, and it's late, and I end up not meeting up with the NFL Live crew. And Darlington and I are just having a blast at the Zach Bryan concert. And I checked my camera roll the next day, and I kind of remember this. It wasn't like I blacked out, but I took an uncomfortably close photo of Daniel Jones and Shane Gillis talking to each other, just to like at the valet, just like a creep shot. And I don't know why I did it. Like, I don't know if it was to send my Giants fan friends or whatever, but now I've been horrified at this ever since. Is like, did they look at me and were like, why is this guy taking a creep shot of us at the valet? Which, by the way, I didn't valet a car. I walked down the Vegas Strip. So now I've just got this creep shot on my phone. And I now have been wondering if they looked at me and were like, this guy's a creep.
Well, let me tell you, I don't think Daniel Jones sees that far away that well based on his quarterback play over the last 4 years.
Brutal. I mean, we spend 5 minutes getting after Daniel Jones earlier, and then we end the show with that. I want you to send this, Kevin, and if you can send this picture to me, we could add it if you feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I did that same thing when I saw Shohei
without a
Ohtani on the field at the Rams game. I totally lost my mind because it was Shohei Ohtani, and then I realized like I'm being a total creep. I'm like 3 feet away from this man and bothering him, and so I regret it. I hope you don't regret
But
this.
like,
So
I'm
send
not
it to me. We will add
especially.
it
I'm
in
not
post.
like I'm not. And I was so close. Oh my god. Oh my god. I was so. Look at this.
Yeah,
I was
that's
way
bad.
too
really
close.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's a
Why
bad
is Shane
job.
Gillis always with NFL players? He was at Christian McCaffrey's wedding.
I don't know.
What?
I don't know. This is bad.
I
This is a
do
bad
appreciate
look.
what you guys do for football, Kevin. No, I mean it. You're making us better. You're making us smarter with This Is Football over at ESPN, and obviously all the NFL programming around the horn there. Check out his podcast. Check out the Mina Kimes show featuring Lenny. And as I mentioned, yeah, I will be back with our last show of the week. I'm very into the AFC South this year, Texans and Jaguars. We're actually doing a bit of a deep dive. Seth Payne, who covers the Texans, John Shipley, who does the Jaguars, and we'll recap the preseason games. Until then, see you next time.